Aloha, my name is Teal Collins and this is my presentation on Native American music for Music 102. To start off, I'm going to talk about the background music history, or the background history of Native Americans. As we all know, Native Americans were the first in America, and there was an estimated total of 10 to 90 million Native Americans when the Europeans actually arrived. They covered many different parts of the land and all over the nation that is now known as America, and they were split into many different tribes and nations. The Native American people, still to this day, they respect the land, and they made wise use of all the natural resources that had been provided for them. And depending on the different areas they were, depended on what resources they had and what crops they were able to grow, and the different materials they used for making different weapons to hunt more animals, or their houses, and just different things that helped them to survive. They were called Indians, which now most of them prefer to be called Native Americans, and they were called Indians because Christopher Columbus had thought that he landed in the Indies when he first arrived in America, and since Native Americans were the first one here, he called them Indians. They thought of the Europeans when they came over as weird men, and they were interested in the different things that they had brought over, their weapons, their different materials that they used, and they found it very interesting. And at first, they were they shied away from the settlers, but then they were able to get to work, not necessarily work with them, but in a way work with them, get to know them, and they were able to become friends, and they taught the European settlers how to plant and raise crops. And if it wasn't for the Native Americans and their kind nature and willingness to help, the settlers would have not been able to survive, and if they did, it would have been very difficult for them, because they would have had to learn a lot on their own, and a lot more would have died in the process. The Europeans began to start to disrespect the land after they were here for a while, and they wanted to start to take over, and in their attempt to do so, it caused great pain to the Native Americans, and more Europeans, when they heard about the new land, started to make their way over and to take over the land. And when all these ships were coming to the land, they were bringing with them disease and plague, and this wiped out a big number of the Native Americans because they were not immune to these sicknesses, and it killed so many of them, so it made their numbers weaker. And a quote that I found was, the arrogant attitude of the ever-growing whites led to the Indian Wars, the Indian Removal Act of 1830, and in 1890, one of the worst massacres ever, Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Here warriors, women, and children alike were ferociously slaughtered by the U.S. cavalry. And this massacre that happened was the start of what we know as the Trail of Tears. And the Trail of Tears is a really sad event that occurred in the U.S. history, and the U.S. government began a relocation program for Native Americans. They took children from their families, and they took away the native language. The Native Americans would be injured. They would be treated poorly, and they weren't allowed to speak their native tongue. And the children were taken away from their families and put into school so that they could become more civilized. And they were all kicked off their lands and put on reservations, and many died during the process, and it was very brutal, and it was a painful march, and the women and children, they all had to be a part of this, and they were treated so poorly and unfairly by the government. The result was particularly overwhelming for the Indians of the southeastern United States, primarily the Cherokees, the Chickasaws, the Choctaws, the Creeks, and the Seminoles. The Indian Citizenship Act of 1924 offered citizens of the Native American tribes, offered them citizenship. And after all that they had been through, they were finally offered citizenship. But even to this day, there's so many Native Americans that still live on reservations, which they were relocated to because of the poor treatment of the government. And they now have programs that have been put into place, instituted by the government to help them, and they are considered one of the most poverty-ridden people, and some of the reservations that you can see nowadays are not nearly as poverty-stricken as others, but it's definitely prevalent in our country, and it is sad to see, what they've gone through and what they still face. And the government has tried to, help them out, but a lot of them have just taken on poor quality lifestyles, and it's hard to get out of those phases after they've been through so much. And today, their traditions and their culture still is a big part of them, and a big part of their culture is music and dance. And one thing that Native Americans are most widely known for are powwows, and a powwow is a gathering for Native Americans, and in modern terms of a powwow, it's a specific event where both Native American and non-Native American people meet to dance and to sing and to socialize and to honor and to remember and represent the Native American culture. And so just to start off getting into the music part of this, the Native American music, it's entirely melodic. There's no harmony or polyphony, although there's occasional antiphonal singing between soloist and chorus. The melody is generally characterized by a descending melodic figure. Its rhythm is regular. There's no conception of absolute pitch, and intonation can appear uncertain. The result of the distinctive method of voice production involving muscular tension is the vocal apparatus and making possible frequent strong accents. Singing is nearly always accompanied by at least drums. Drums is a major part of their instrument group, and there are rattles and chief percussion and instruments and wind instruments that are mainly flutes and whistles. Okay, so continuing with the representative instruments, just as I mentioned before about the drums, they're a big part of Native American music and their dance and their culture. And the instruments that are used in the different Native American tribes and nations are dependent upon the geographical location of the tribe. So for the southwestern United States, they are limited to the idiophones and areophones, and these make sound production beginning in like the 17th century. And some examples of idiophones are like a plank resonator, a clip drum, percussion stones. Areophones examples are like whistles and flutes and shell trumpets. And then for the American Midwest, which is like the plain area, this music is nasal with high pitches and frequent falsettos. It's a step descendant down an octave in an unblended monophony. Large examples of their instruments is like large double-skinned drums, solo-ended blown flutes, and then we have the Northwest coastal instrument is more diverse than the rest of North America and includes a wide variety of whistles, flutes, horns, and of course percussion. And then for the Arctic, like Alaska, they're well known for throat singing. It's an unusual method, but it's found in a few cultures around the world. And I just want to show an example of drumming that is found in a lot of powwows, and I think this example is really good, and I'm just going to show a few minutes of it. just a quick, brief little example, but it just shows the men are usually the head singers in a drum group, and those are found in powwows. And I'm going to explain that a little bit more as we go on talking about powwows. And I just wanted to show you the instruments, the drum that's very popular among the Native American music. And as we go in talking about powwows, they are still held today, and they're very popular, and you can find a lot of powwows around you. They're all over the United States, and many people come together to embrace Native American culture. You don't have to be Native American. It's a big dance competition, as well as there's singing and drumming, and at a powwow there's always a master of ceremonies, which is like an MC, and then they have the head dancers, a head boy and head girl, and they're in charge of leading out the dancers. And the main thing they do is the grand entry, which is the parade of all the dancers that will be dancing for that powwow. And there's the host drum and the drum groups, and the host drum is like the main drum group that is responsible for the music and for the dancers. And the drummers take turns like with the singing and chanting, but the host drum is usually the one that's like in charge and kind of like the lead. There are different groups of categories for men and women to compete in the powwow, and I'm just going to briefly talk about a few for the traditional dance. For the women, there's traditional, there's buckskin and cloth, there's fancy shot and jingle dress, and if you want to look some of those up on YouTube, there's some great videos that you can find. One of my favorite is the jingle dress, and this one is there are these little bells that are made out of metal, and they're like connected on the dress, and when you move and you shake, it makes noise, and the dancer moves light and has smooth footwork. And then for the men categories, there's fancy dance or fancy feather dance, and then there's the northern traditional, and the southern straight, and the grass dance. And for people who haven't really seen these before, they might kind of find it a little bit humorous, but once you understand the culture and understand that they're representing nature and representing something that is meaningful to them, it's easier to understand it and appreciate it. And one of the dances that I really, really enjoy and love is hoop dance. And this one I didn't actually include on the slide, but it's a category that can be for men and women, and children do compete in traditional hoop dance and all these other dances as well. And I just want to show a brief example of a hoop dance on YouTube, and I think this gives a pretty good example of hoop dancing for you, so I'll let you watch this. So I know that was a really quick video again. I'm kind of running out of time, but I just wanted to show a demonstration of a dance that I really love. And the culture today still stays strong, and they keep a lot of the same traditions with using flute and drum, and a lot of songs that you can find today are still in the native languages that are spoken. And some music can be found with the drumming and the flutes and with English lyrics. And one of my favorite songs that is really meaningful to the culture is Go My Son, and it's by Arlene Nachjizi Williams and Carne Burson. And Carne was actually a family friend of ours, and I'm actually Native American, and so this song is very meaningful to me, but I probably won't be able to show it because we are running out of time. And so I hope that you can go on and YouTube and find this and listen to it. And I just wanted to thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a greater appreciation for Native American music. Thank you.